Hi everyone, welcome to Rise Above All Odds. And on this platform, we share powerful stories that inspire, challenge, and of course, transform. And today we bring you a voice that bridges continents, identities, and of course, experiences. Our guest is a distinguished scholar, a literary craftsman, a true son of Cameroon, and of course, he is none else but our own Professor Dr. Gilbert Ndi-Shang, and he's got a PhD in comparative literature and a body of work that speaks to identity, to memory, and resilience. And he joins us to explore his latest masterpiece, The Radio and Other Stories, a book that if you have not read, then you are missing out on something. So he was recently appointed as the Heisenberg professor of comparative literature at the University of Bayreuth, Bavaria in Germany. This is a prestigious recognition of his academic excellence, and of course, which we are here to celebrate as well, which we say congratulations before he starts speaking to us. And so we welcome Gil, and of course, it's an absolute honor to have you with us today. And we're excited to dive into your remarkable journey and explore the depth of your latest work. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
The honor is mine, Komi. Thanks so much for honoring me with this invitation, and I'm very willing to share with your audience about the other stories about my creative career, and also, why not, about life in general.
Yeah, sure, sure. That's just an honor and of course a privilege to have you to do that with us. So, you once mentioned that living in the diaspora for many years prompted a deep need to reconnect with home and maybe reassert identity. Could you elaborate on how this journey shaped the working of your book or the writing of your book?
Thank you very much, Komi. It's always a pleasure to talk about the radio and other stories, and more so about the writing process. The radio and other stories was a very unique experience for me. I was writing that book as a son of the soil who has, for reasons of education, been away from home for quite a while, I would say. The book was written in 2016. That's when I began writing the book. Of course, it took about 4 or 5 years for it to get published.
Mhm.
As you know, writing is not an easy process. You write and rewrite and polish, and before it gets out, it's a very uh, quite rewarding, easy one, but uh, cha- challenging but rewarding at the same time. That's how I can put it. So it was my coming to terms with being away from home, being
Mhm.
away from home, and but also to acknowledge how much I have been shaped by that home. For me, I actually grew up. Maybe you and I, we grew up at a time when globalization was not only a buzzword, but a concept that brought a lot of hope. You know that we who come from the margins could, by dint of our hard work, make it to the global sphere. So, and that book for me is how I could imagine myself bringing what was peculiar about my home to the global sphere of knowledge and cultural exchange. And one thing about me was that when I came to Germany, that was 2010. I turned to be humbled by the way people appreciated my width of knowledge about the world and about other people's countries. And so I was really humbled, and I was like, okay, if they could appreciate this about me, then maybe they would also be interested in reading about where I come from, where I come from. So I was like, there are particular figures, I would even call them local heroes from my environment that needed to be heard or talked about. And so I said, this is what I bring from my upbringing to the world. And that is how that's why you find that the radio is some sort of at the intersection between the local and the global. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you see the way, I mean, I even bring, to the fore in that book, local icons that actually had names of global stars. I think you read about Belmundo, on the, you know, so so for every phenomenon that is global, we had some sort of local cognates, local, equivalent. So I wanted to really bring this kind of interface, to the reading public, and this is what I think I have achieved to an extent in this book. Yes.
Yes, believe me, guys. There's no need to talk a lot about this because you need to look out for the radio and other stories. Because personally, if I want to recount my experience reading this book, I was just like, "Who is this person?" But the first time you caught my attention was when you put a post, on Facebook. I'm just like, just with a stroke of a pen, you walk me throughout. You just through the village I grew up in, before I finally discovered, and then when I laid hands on the radio and other stories, oh my god, I was just like, listen, you have a description and a word for everything I'm just like, how is he doing this? Because that's what I'm stuck, but then it's so interesting how you do it, very crafty. And I'm just surprised to think that it was just it's something you thought that, oh, maybe I should do it, because someone reading it would think that maybe it's something you had planned for ages, that I really want to do this, and then at some point it came. But then it's just wonderful. So there are things that there's some form of coincidence that's happening in your book. And we've had this chat. It's not directly stated, but we've had this chat where you make me understand that you were born around the same year that the Cameroon's New Deal began, when the president himself became president. And so your reflection, in those days, it was different, but then your reflections, they show a shift from the early patriotism to a more critical lens. So what happened? What brought to this sudden change? Because before, maybe in your younger age, there was just this patriotism, my country or my this and stuff like that. But at some point, you became a bit critical. So can you maybe walk us through this transformation?
Yeah, Komi, for everyone who knows me, I'm a very idealistic person. I'm a very idealistic person, which means that I always live with the imagination that there's a possible El Dorado, in the world. That and you see this from the very prologue of the book, where when I actually when the protagonist asks his mom, then when shall there be life? If everything seems to contradict any form of fulfillment and happiness, then so that prologue ends with the when shall there be life then, so that statement in itself underlines that kind of creative illusion of a perfect world that exists, or that we have to create by our actions or by our deeds. So growing up, you would imagine concepts like state, nation, and democracy, and you will think that these are wonderful concepts on paper, but then when you look at the reality, there's a kind of mismatch, you know. So yes, so I was born in the year that the current new the old New Deal, started its course, or some would say it curse on the nation. And so I wanted to make this book reflect the experiences. Of course, this is not. I won't speak for an entire generation, but I wanted to see that through my experience, uh, people can have some inroads into how the different trajectories, the challenges, and maybe also the opportunities, of kids born around that era. The trajectories are never going to be the same. I mean, people have different destinies, but there are some peculiar experiences that people can relate with or relate to. And I think when I wrote, most of those who grew up around that, or some even didn't know Cameroon, but they even, could relate some of those experiences.
Exactly.
And so, yes, this was the kind of hope that I actually grew up with. Being born in 1982 means that in the year 1990, the whole wind of change, the Berlin Wall, glasnost and perestroika and all that. So there was that kind of like, as your eyes are opening to the world, you are imagining that multi-party democracy would bring some form of a really responsible governance. And somehow you find the democratic roots of your own country, the path being truncated by in some way, and you end up in a kind of regime that is neither overtly autocratic nor a real proper functional electoral democracy. So I refer to it as kind of androgynous regime, neither man nor woman. You know what androgynous people. So I wanted to narrate that experience, to actually capture the sensation, but also the disappointment, the tears of that generation. And I think that comes out clearly in the chapter on the shoe, because it's about the
Right.
university, and this is where I actually try to capture what students go through, even though they come from different parts of the country. Anglophone, I did bilingual letters, so which means that I could relate even with what my francophone counterpart also went through. So this is what I wanted to capture: a generational experience, of course, narrated from the prism of my own memory.
Exactly. And one thing is that you actually speak for the entire generation, because everybody reads and just nods, say, hey, yeah, this, I can relate and stuff like that. And I think that's something that whatever you're telling here is something that almost cuts across the entire Africa. But then sometimes we need to point at it. And there's so much about this book, guys. We cannot go. I wish we could have time. Maybe we find to read this book here, but we can't. It's just a book you want to lay hands on. If you are from that country, Cameroon, you are just going to say that, yes, this is what everybody needs now. And if you are from Africa, you definitely relate. If you are not, then maybe from another continent, you just want to have a look, and then you'll never regret it. So one of the things about this book is that you just wrote it because people just made you feel that maybe I should put down something. But then it became a phenomenon, if I'm using the right word here, because you know how far the radio and other stories has gone. You know, uh, you just you can see that this book has been used, apart from people like myself and many others just buying it to read. It's been used in various projects here and there. That was not what, I'm not sure if that was what you saw when the day you decided to write the book. So can you tell us a bit more how far this book has gone and what it means to you?
Thank you so much, Komi. Yes, I mean, sometimes we are really humbled by the trajectories that what comes out of our pain, experience. I happen to have met Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the renowned Kenyan author. I spent 2 weeks with him in California in 2012.
Wow.
Was a unique experience. And when I told him about how excited as a Cameroonian student who studied "I will marry when I want," "Whip no child," and "Grain of wheat is cold," he was really excited. And I mean, but you would see from a giant like Ngugi wa Thiong'o being humble to know that his books are being read. And he told me, my son, when you write, the main thing is for you to be read, and when readers give you their feedback is the best thing. And it happened that by the time I spent 2 weeks with him, his name has always been on the on the short list for the Nobel
Oh,
Prize.
wow.
And somehow he didn't get it, and he told me that his own Nobel Prize is when somebody comes and tells him how he or she read his book, and how what that book did for him or her, for them.
Wow.
So yes, there's nothing as endearing and at the same time as humbling as listening to testimonies of how your books have been read. This book has really gone far and wide. I mean, I've met people from various corners of the world telling me how much it transformed their ways of looking at things. And one thing that kept coming out exact, and I think you also pointed out in your review, was the humor.
Right.
The
Yeah.
humor, the humor. Like how laughter, some sort of, can provide a way for us to look back at sometimes very painful experiences. Um, if you look at the chapter on the shoe, I mean, it's a real life experience, and one of my most humiliating experience, as a student, uh, in the University of Yaoundé one. Yes, and so this just shows what students went through during and still go through. But I narrate it with a heavy dose of humor, because it's also like what do we call it in literature,
Mm-hmm.
self-derision, and also looking at, so it uh, so the fact that the book has been so relatable has really humbled me. Some few months ago, a friend of mine shared with me that she's currently in Italy, where I am talking from now,
Mm-hmm.
and that she treated the book, with her students, with her students, and they really, really appreciated it. Here in Italy, secondary school
Mm-hmm.
students, uh, in Rome. So I could at least imagine that the book would really
I
go that
know.
far. And yes,
There's something I want to stop you here and let's discuss a bit because there's one time
yes,
ago I was listening to a podcast by this girl, this Kenyan lady who is a movie actress, the black lady. I'm sorry calling her black. She the power of
uh,
storytelling.
Lupita
Yeah,
Nyong'o,
Lupita. Yeah,
Lupita,
Lupita says,
yes,
I think I need to bring I hope it's relevant because you're talking about this book being studied in Italy and many other places, guys.
yes,
You know,
many
Lupita
other places,
talked
yes.
about the power of storytelling is something that is still missing within the African community. Believe me, where you come from, you started from down village to come back to wherever to Yaoundé and then to Germany, and then you're sitting here being read throughout the world and doing whatever you are doing. So I just want you to use this opportunity to share the power of storytelling because we keep ours to ourselves because it's humiliating, it's humbling. Who will even read it because it's set in my village, down the village of who will be interesting? But this is how far it goes. So what do you say here? Because many people are still coming from the
Exactly. I think one thing that I believe in is never to be ashamed of where you come from. Because the whole world is both the center and the periphery, right? If England did not colonize us, we would not have been reading about River Thames and all that. If if we are the ones who had colonized England, we would have been reading about the River Mbi of Lo and all that. So what actually turns some spaces into global spaces and others into local is just a global power dynamics and imbalance. You know, so every space has stories and memories that need to make it to the global sphere. This is what we can bring. Ngugi wa Thiong'o again, said he wrote a book, Moving the Center.
Mhm.
No center is permanent. You know, so we can actually through our stories turn our periphery into the center in its own way, right? It comes from the underlying fact that we are all human beings and blood runs through all our veins. Nobody elsewhere is more human than you and I by dint of where they come from. So all of us come from somewhere, and the stories that we carry in us need to be told. And never think that your story is so particular. When you tell it, you will be surprised that somebody in the far north or far eastern corner of the world would actually relate with it. So
Exactly.
stories actually humanize us. They are part of the human experience. So all this experience of sexual difference, gender difference, cultural difference, race and all the like, these are just plastic and some sort of non-genuine differentiations. At the base of it, we are all humans and we have stories to tell, and those stories are relatable. No, it's just the way we tell them. Now, in my own case, what actually I think was quite decisive in the radio is that even though these are local stories, I tell them sometimes through metaphors, through globalized metaphors. So I'm telling a story about a particular thief in Cambe who was notorious, but then I remember that his name was
Yeah,
Belmondo. Why was he called Belmondo? A renowned French film actor. So which means that somebody who knows about Belmondo, the film actor, would connect,
exactly.
with that.
Right.
I'm telling a story about local youth playing football, and then I talk about Jürgen Klinsmann. This was a famous 1990. So I try to connect. So my own knowledge of the world played a very huge role in the way I told the story. I told the local stories in the region, other stories. So I was using some sort of globalized and well-known metaphors or figures to narrate stories that occurred at a very local level.
Exactly. The,
I think that played a very huge difference. I mean, it played I mean, it made a difference in the way the stories were received.
exactly. You know why I agree with you, because in other parts of the world, they have already seen enough of the themes that surround them, and stuff like that. They just want something new. Not until you put it down, nobody will know that, oh my god, this is interesting, and then it becomes an eye opener, and it gets viral, and it happens the way it's happening. So we are emphasizing on this just to let people know that don't keep your story, don't take it to the grave, don't even be bothered about anything. I talk with Gil a lot because I'm one of those, but then I talk to him a lot. I'm just telling him, please just help me do something, or help someone do something. So one of the things, we've been having a back and forth chat, and one of the reasons you think this book was necessary was like a kind of a reference document, or for our children who are born here in the diaspora and sometimes feel lost. So this brought me a bit to your fear of the sugar disease that killed the guy. Because you know how when you then say, oh, equile young sugar can, and I'm trying to imagine mom saying that in the local language. You are like, oh my god, I used to steal sugar and stuff like that. Somebody dies of sugar, and so what do you think a child would benefit from this, from the radio and other stories?
Yes, I mean, so the radio and other stories I mean, it can enter into several frames. Some can say it's what they call in literature Bildungsroman, so a novel of development of yes. So, or self-awareness, like growing up and then getting to know the world. One can structure it as such. You know, certain stories actually are better told as childhood memoirs, right? And this is the way sometimes painful experiences are better related from the perspective, from the prism of how a child saw it, right? And so the story of the doctor, this is how I saw it unfold. Seeing my father shed tears for the very first time in a patriarchal society where you don't even think that your father can
Men
cry,
don't cry.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Men don't cry. And then experiencing the June 1992 massacre in Ju, of which the stories came to me from, I mean, through the fact that my family in Ju came to Lo, and instead of bringing us ching ching as they would always do, they came with some strange stories of bottles being inserted into women's. I mean, so this is how it came. It simmered into my ear as a child, you know. So these are painful memories, but through those childhood memoirs, I'm trying to capture, how as a child you would perceive the world. And as you said in, I mean, in our second question, your second question to me, this is how the disaffection with the state also started coming in. Seeing what the state that is supposed to protect its citizens now being at the, being rather responsible for this kind of situation. So yes, how this book could be helpful to a child. Childhood dreams are what actually sustain us, right?
Right.
Who we are today, we might not have become exactly whom we wanted to
Yeah,
become, but at least the fact that you had a
we
dream
started from
spurred
somewhere.
you
Yeah.
from somewhere. Yes. So a person like me, I grew up with a high sense of certainty that I was going to become a diplomat.
Right.
Yes, and so you would find that as a thread in that book from the. And when I talk about the shoe experience, I related to who I related to Giuseppe Mazzini, the Italian. I'm not speaking from Italy,
Yeah.
so this was an Italian
Right.
nationalist, but who had very strong ideas about how the Italian reunification could be achieved. Uh, Italy was characterized as a geographical expression, just lacking any national soul, and so Mazzini wanted to give Italy that soul. So I relate, I relate it to my experience as somebody who was growing up harboring a dream of, becoming something, a diplomat.
Right.
That made me read beyond what my peers were reading. That made me forgo certain things in my life because I had that dream to achieve. And even if I did not become the diplomat, I would not also have been very proud to become a diplomat for a nation that I don't believe
No.
in the first place. I mean, in the current
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. But I think when I look at my trajectory, I do diplomacy from the literary perspective
I
in
was
a
I
way.
was going to say that as
Yes,
well, right? So I thought right,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And I think it's even more effective for the amount of work that I've done in Colombia, in Brazil. This is very Pan Africanist in I mean, also like sharing my experience of telling stories, and it's more so important to our diaspora because imagine you and I grew up in a majority black society where our humanity was not put to
Mm-hmm.
question. Uh, even if we left Cameroon and went, and further our education, traveled, at least we already had our personality formed. But imagine our African brothers and sisters who grew up in a society where they are questioned, their humanity is being questioned on a daily basis. So the more reason why telling their stories is that important from childhood. So this is the work that I've been doing in these communities. And I think I've been doing cultural diplomacy, at the highest level, as
Yes,
I
yes,
can
yeah.
imagine.
I really
Yes,
agree.
yes.
Yeah, one of the things is, Gil, many parts of the radio and other stories, like you already said, draw from rural and semi-urban spaces. Settings that shaped our early lives before we even moved to the global metropolis. So, what role do you think? I know you've touched on this, but then this is important because
Yeah.
sometimes even somebody who is still down there doesn't think it can come this far. So, what role do you think plays, or do these places have played in the preserving memory, building identity, and informing the stories?
Okay. Yes. Places shape who we are and and we also have the capacity of shaping places and spaces, of course, like leaving our marks on the sands of time wherever we are. But places shape us in very indelible ways. And so when I look at my trajectory, I find a way of valorizing a particular aspect of my life that has been conditioned by where I grew up. Um, Lo Nkambe, Yaoundé, Germany. So all these places have left memories, have left imprints on my personality, have shaped who I've been or who I am. I mean, I'm not a settled human being. I'm still becoming also. So
Exactly.
these have left imprints. Yes, the people that I've interacted with by virtue of having met them on these places have really been quite transforming to me. Let me share something with you. Just recently, Pamatanto, whom I think many of us
Yeah,
know,
I just know it from social media.
won exactly won a landmark award in Qatar, right? And you won't imagine that Famatanto is somebody that I can tell his story because I actually we studied together in Cambe, and just to find somebody who bought that dream, you know, I feel proud that I happen to have studied with him in the same school. We happen to have been in Cambe
Mm-hmm.
together, and I've seen somebody who has nurtured. Nurtured for Famatanto is even used in a literal sense because he nurtured. He groomed his dreams. Like planted the dreams, flowers. So the roots of his dreams are very deep. So anybody who grew up in Cambe, uh, must be fascinated by Famatanto stories and many other people whom we got to know by virtue of having studied in that place called Cambe. It might seem benign, but it had its heroes, and that's why I was, my main aim was to actually tell these stories also in the radio, in the radio and other stories. People whom you grew up with at the local level, but who had a very global mind, who saw ahead of their time, right? Let me tell you, just another example of somebody whose stories I tell in, because the radio and other stories is not just my story. I use it as a canal to tell other people's
Right,
stories,
right.
and that's also one thing about me. I like celebrating others. I prefer to bring myself quite low and not even talk so much about myself, but I see value in others. There was one guy in my village called Nyamifo. He was the son of the previous founder of Lo. This guy was what we call a syncretic Christian. You would find him active in the church choir, sing, and when there was any burial anywhere, Nyamifo would be the first to be there to. He but go to the cultural settings, he would be the first at a time when it was anathema to be dining with the with those who defend culture. And then, but what is happening now in our community? There's a kind of cultural revival that is going on, and what is being preached now is this form of syncretic acceptance of our multiple
Right.
beings. you know we have our own beliefs, but we can still embrace Christianity and practice it in a way that can conform to our. This is what I portrayed in Yamifo's story, but he was being frowned
I
at,
know.
you know, from both ends, you know. So growing up in Lo and being privileged to have known Yamifo, although people saw him as a nobody, but these are people who inspired me, who really very much inspired me, you know And so every place where we grew up, we can tell the stories of these places because they have intrinsic values. They have people whose stories can inspire others,
True.
even if they are not looked upon as heroes in the immediate future. But with time, their true value is being revealed. Famatanto was just a kind of a trouble. Like, those who did not see his value were wondering, how should somebody become a labor prefect when
Okay, I
there are
know.
people are going in for,
Senior
senior
prefect
prefects and
and
all that?
high,
But
I know.
see where Famatanto is
Right.
today, you know? Exactly.
Things like what you're saying, somebody like Nyamifo and the likes. We know those people. Those are people like they're reference to no class and stuff like that. And so, but then not until you bring it back to where you raised him to this point where he's being read and talked about around the world. Even because when I made my review, somebody said, "Listen, if you have read that book, you must have read about Luke Village." They're so happy because you brought back Nyamifo and stuff like that. You brought back Wakube and Malam, this guy of Binka and stuff like that. That yes, it's so sweet. And then the beautiful Bororo girl. Those are things that sometimes you draw far away, especially that we've gone a bit far off. Then when you paint a picture of this Bororo girl down in Lu, I remember I that was. I'm just like, God, this is it's so sweet. So, guys, I'm not sure, but somebody just needs to read the video and then find out for yourself. One thing, Gil, your life's journey is packed with growth, with challenges and victories. So, have you considered at some point stepping into maybe the world of motivational speaking to inspire others, like especially young African scholars in the diaspora, and even some of us, not only the young, some of us are looking up to you for inspiration. So, tell us.
Great question, Komi. People wear different caps, in different communities. If you cite my name in the Colombian and Peruvian context, I mean, they perceive me really as an inspiration in terms of in a way I've been a kind of motivational speaker, although specifically about literary writing, yes. So, and of course I've been doing it also in the academic domain. I've been blessed, I would say, to have had a number of awards, scholarship awards. And one thing that I always say is that when you are blessed, you also need to share the blessings, right? Of course, we are never satisfied, but at least the little that you've had in life, you always have to. It's good to share it. And so I usually do a lot of grooming and mentoring in relation to application for research grants and research fellowships. That's the domain where I'm best prepared. I mean, to act. I mean, in order to actually have to actually have an impact. But of course, generally speaking, I have a lot of plans. I also have plans to engage in charity. I believe so much in charity.
Mhm.
And it's something. I mean, all this, like, you know, motivation, mentoring. It's something I share with a very good friend of mine, whom maybe your audience might
Mhm.
know. Uh, a very brilliant son of Mbesa. Mbesa is called Nsamala. He's very well known. He's a writer too, Nsamala.
Okay.
And yes, I mean, I'm a kind of big brother to him, but we share a very enduring friendship. This is somebody also whose life story is so inspiring. A child from Besa, around the Oko area, I think
Yeah.
many of
Yeah.
yes, know him. And who rose to academic heights, and just recently he actually participated in a deliberation in the UN Security Council, about environmental protection, you know, through the literal. I mean, so these are people whose life stories also inspire
Mhm.
me. It's kind of mutual inspiration because he thinks that I inspire him, but I'm also
Right.
inspired by his life story.
Right.
Exactly. So we actually share this dream, of supporting people, be it in the academia or even granting scholarships to our younger ones there. So I'm thinking critically about that, about how to, I mean, about how to be more effective also as a motivational speaker beyond the academic sphere where I'm already doing a lot.
Right.
So it's something I really have in the
I
pipeline.
think I think
Yeah.
it's worth it. So, guys, while before we continue, this is how the radio and other stories look like. If you ever grew up in my country, you can identify or can already see a few pictures there just wanting you to read the book, but then you want to go beyond this copper and just discover things by yourself. Listen, it's so good and it's so nourishing and it's so, listen, it's satisfying. I don't know what to say. Give it a go and let's know what you think. So I'm just very excited about Samala, which we need to go after him because I want to read that book and know a bit more about him. So you're doing so much and it seems like it's just the beginning because the sky is your starting point maybe. So you are part of the young colleague program at the Bavarian Academy of Sciences, and you've received the prestigious fellowships. So what impact have these opportunities had on your intellectual and personal evolution?
Yes, really, it's been a very humbling trajectory for me, a very humbling profile for me. And sometimes I really wonder why God chose me, to be sometimes the only African in certain milieus, the only black person in certain milieus. And such experiences have multiple ways of shaping us. Either we become like so, really is so proud, and then say, okay, we are there by dint of our hard work and intelligence, and yes, or it also humbles you and really want you to transmit something to those younger ones, and also so that you should not only be the only person in those spaces, because we need representation, of Africans, of black people, in certain areas, so it has really been a life transforming experience for me to be a member of the Bavarian Academy of Science for the past 6 years, in Munich. So this is really a very high level intellectual circle, and it's been a wonderful honor in my life to actually be there, and also to be the Humboldt alumnus. That's the program that took me to Colombia, and so it's been really been a wonderful opportunity for me, and it made me to really revalorize where I come from. As I say, to have, to think of studying on bamboo benches in
No.
GS low,
Yes. I know
and
that. Yeah.
and having to compete with people who were born with with silver spoons, as far as education is concerned. That's what I mean. I don't mean economically, but just to compete with people from various corners of the world who had a better, stepping stone in terms of their educational trajectory. It's very humbling. It's very humbling, and it makes me to really look back, at the teachers who have influenced me, at colleagues. I mean, at friends, classmates, and to really entrench my desire to give back. I've already been giving back, you know, through various initiatives, but I still want to do more. It seems I have lost you, Komi. Do you
Yeah.
still?
Can you hear me?
Okay, you are back.
Gil, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Uh, yes, I can hear you.
All
Yes.
right. Yeah, because I lost you at some point, so I don't know whether the cause was me or you. I lost you for a couple of seconds, not up to a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
No, I was saying. Yeah, I was given the experience of having studied in the primary school,
no.
on bamboo
Yes.
benches, and having to compete at a very high level, with people who had a better stepping stone in terms of their academic trajectory.
Yeah.
It's been very humbling, and but it reminds me of one thing. As I said, I grew up in the era where globalization was the boost, was like a
Mm-hmm.
catchphrase, and whatever thing I was doing in the around the year 2000, I was preparing myself to compete with people from various corners, not only with my mates in Cameroon, but with people from various parts of the world. So I was always doing my best. I was always at the British Council on a daily basis. I was always reading beyond what I had to read, as far as the school program was concerned. I was always, staying tuned to the BBC and other international channels when my friends were only limited to the national station. So I really prepared myself. I don't know whether God just gave me that. God blessed me with that, with that sense of with that pre-science, as we
Yeah.
call, of having to really envisage myself, beyond my immediate space. And I think when I look at my life too, I think the fact that I'm very passionate about languages also has to do with how I projected myself, beyond the temporality where I was,
Right.
back there. I knew I wanted to learn languages to connect with the world, and to be able to compete at a very high level
Exactly.
with people from various,
I think
parts of the
yeah,
world.
this is just powerful and very empowering because young people need to listen to this, especially from the African continent. I don't know about other continents and other parts. I think everywhere though, you have somebody who is just dying within themselves, like, I really want to do this thing, but I can't do it like that person. But then you look at yourself, there are no limits, I'm unstoppable, I'm just going to get it done and stuff like that. And then you go get it done, because sometimes we limit ourselves, and then we are comfortable where we are. We paint that picture of us that we can only belong here. Because I remember when I graduated from the University of Chang, so I visited the Palace. Yeah. So the previous one before the present, he was like surprised that somebody graduated from GS from Ambonyo. That's how they call the school where I went to, the GS job. And then it's coming from the university, like, really, did you really go to and stuff like that? Because that is what we have in our mind. I don't know if I'm making sense. And so you need to sit here now and take this out of the people's systems. Young people are still coming there like, I badly want to get up there, but it is meant for a particular people. But then you fought it. So does that make sense? Is that something you need to hit hard on and get it out of our people?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for me. I mean, I always say, don't let your now define you. I
Yeah,
mean, like, let your dreams define you. Let your dreams define you. When somebody looks at the trajectory that I mean, or at my profile, even in academic milieus in Germany or in the US, they think that maybe I just sailed through,
I
but
know. Yeah.
there were moments of challenges, there were moments of self-doubt, but there was that flame that actually kept me alive.
You just needed to write the story. I know you've written a few more books, guys. What you just need to find out about Ndi-Shang. Let's do a bit more. You will tell us as much as you can. I know you've written a few more, but you badly had to write uh the radio, to be fair. Listen, you already mentioned about your love for languages. We know that apart from your literary achievements, you're a trained French language teacher. So how does your linguistic, maybe pedagogical background influence your storytelling and your academic outlook?
Yes, actually, I mean, I think the fact that I fell in love with the French language, I'm born and bred in Lo, and then going to Nkambe, never even been to a French. I mean, I never had the privilege of going for holidays. I mean, to visit an uncle or an aunt in the francophone
Same
part of
here.
the country.
Yeah.
So it was always I was a marvel to myself. How come classmates who had lived in Kutaba with their military parents, and who had could not, I mean, were depending on me, I mean, to actually pass their French exams in Canberra. So it was quite humbling. So, but I think the love for French itself was a kind of foundation for me. We actually grew up in a context where they say the bilingual country, and they make it sound as if it's something is a great achievement. You know, so that when Cameroonians speak two languages, they are like two official languages. They're like, okay, this I'm done. But for me, it was always like the beginning, because I needed to understand, because after having been groomed up, with international, journalists, following Deutsche Welle,
I know.
following even BBC Awosa service and all that. So I was like, I needed to know these languages. I mean, Radio Malabo at the time, you would listen and its Spanish would sound to you like a strange something,
Yeah.
so I wanted to go. So the fact that I could excel in French, and become a teacher, even not only being a good student, but also being the first of my batch upon graduation from Ecole Normale as a trained teacher. I mean, always been a motivation for me to do more. And when I came to Germany, I applied the same level of passion for German language. And before long, people were like, one guy has come from Cameroon here, and he has learned the language like an European. That's how they describe me in German, that I learned the language like European. Just take off.
Yes. Started
And
going.
and given that German is a relatively difficult language, that also motivated me to now go into Spanish and Portuguese, and then before I realized, I was into 9 languages. And so, and still going, as we're talking, I'm learning Swahili. I'm learning Swahili day by day. And yeah, so it's just language learning is part of my life, but it's underlined by one thing. I always want to connect with
Right.
people.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, within and without my own cultural sphere. So I'm that kind of person who always wants to relate with
Mm-hmm.
people because I believe so much in the oneness of
Mm-hmm.
humanity. And languages connect us. In languages open doors. Languages make us secure. I'm in Italy now, and just the fact that that I can defend myself in
Mm-hmm.
Italian has made life so easy for me here,
Oh,
you know. So, and when you speak to somebody in their language, even if you are at just, not perfect, but showing the passion, they relate and connect with you better, and they open up to you better.
true.
So Ngugi wa Thiong'o, again, I'm making reference to Ngugi wa Thiong'o a lot, said, if know other people's languages and you don't know yours, that is enslavement. But if you know your own language and then you add other languages to it, that is empowerment. So learning a language is a form of
Mm-hmm.
self-empowerment.
True.
And that's something I've kept even my students, even for the 1 year that I taught in Marwa. um, it was always a wonderful experience seeing how I could really for just for 1 year really 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 spur up a number of students who write to me today and said just the 1 year that I spent with them before traveling to Germany, how transformative it was to them. It was an honor for me
Wow.
too.
Yeah, I can imagine because, like you rightly say, I like even how they call it in Germany, in the German language. When you come the first 6 months, they call it Integrationskurs. So it's the integration. You can only integrate through language. You don't speak, then you are not in this country, right? So I think I know exactly what that means. And there's some saying that when you speak to someone in their language, you speak directly to their heart. So
To
yes,
their hearts.
just no matter how people, somebody might want to judge you from first appearance and stuff, but then the moment you start speaking their language, you already belong and you're already welcome. So nothing happens without language, and I think we can. I think we're breaking up again. Can you hear me?
I hear you. It just had a small glitch, but it's back now. It's back.
Back. It's
Yes.
back. Yeah, I can see that it's back. Yeah. So I think we
Yes.
yeah, we should be gradually rounding up, but then this is something that we have to go on it over and over again because we have to, there's so much from you that we have to tap because some of us need to grow. Many people are looking up to you, but then like I'm saying, so many people are just worried. I don't have the means. I'm not that person. I can never get there, but that's where I really want to be. So if you were to send a powerful message back home, you know, back home or to anybody at all, because this platform is for the entire world, what would you be telling to
Yes.
somebody
Yes.
who's still behind there but then wants to come this far?
Yes. I will tell them that the world is their oyster. Yes, the world is your oyster. This is something that one professor from England told me. Just a small testimony. When I went into Economal, I was connected to a professor in England who was their own economan in England. He was a professor there, and he wanted to have a corresponding student in Cameroon. And so he would send essays to me, and then the same essays that he has given to his students, and then I would respond, and he would send me like the material from which to really craft my essays. And when he read my first essay, he told me the world is your oyster, Professor Jenkins Noel, and I will never forget it. Don't limit yourself. The world is your oyster.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in your dreams, and those dreams are going to propel you. Let nobody tell you that you can't. You're only limited by your own myopia. But if you have dreams that actually have been burning within
Mm-hmm.
you, do everything possible. I mean, me talking to you here today, I mean, of course, I'm a son of a primary school teacher, you know,
Oh.
and nothing in my background could have made you think that I would be where I am today. Of course, I have not arrived, I still say it, but at least I can be proud of where I am
Definitely,
today,
yes. Way.
and yes, and humbled by the trajectory. So please never limit yourself. Never limit yourself, and make your parents proud. Make your teachers proud, because one thing that I have learned is that at least the education that we've had
Mm-hmm.
is not deficient in any way
Right.
compared to what other students from other African countries or from other parts of the world have,
Hmm.
really. So if you have, from this context, that I mean from our context, our mutual context, please believe that you can go as far as possible.
Right.
And because I'm not the only example, I've cited, we have cited examples of people who actually have made it also.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that runs through the story is, I mean, all our stories is that we were never cowered down, even by the most difficult circumstances that we went
Hmm.
through.
Wow, that's
Yes.
very, very encouraging, and just
Keep,
go ahead.
keep, keep that flame alive.
Right. Yeah, sure. Gil, before we wrap up, I would like to maybe tell us really quick, what are some of the books you've written apart from the radio, and where do we find your books? Where do people contact you if somebody just needs maybe mentorship or just anything? You talked about facilitating scholarships or how to find and stuff like that. Maybe just say a
Yes.
bit more about you now.
Yes, please. I mean, I think I'm quite media savvy, especially when it comes to Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, and LinkedIn. So you can contact me on Facebook on a kind of Chinese rendition of my name, Gil but Nihang. So Gil, Gil space But, like but in English, and then Nihang. So it's kind of like a Chinese version of Ndi-Shang.
I'll run it on the ticker.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
yes, Gilbert Nihang. And of course, on LinkedIn with my official names, Gilbert Ndi-Shang.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so the other books that I've written, I mean, I the Radio and Other Stories was my second creative book, and it came on the heels of Letter from America, which has actually been very popular, but more in the academic
Mm-hmm.
domain, and also more in the like in Latin America, because I wrote it about Latin America. And I was invited to Colombia by the former Minister of Culture to present the book at the festival. And I just got just 2 days ago, I've been invited to Kenya to talk about the book, Letter from America. So that will be on the 27th of
Mm-hmm.
June in Nairobi at the festival in Nairobi. So that's one of my creative books. And now the academic books, there are many, and some are actually upcoming. Yes, I've written a lot on violence in the Congo and in Peru. I've also written about state representation in the African novel.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those who follow me on Facebook always know the way I write so much about states and presidents, because it's not only because I want to criticize some regimes, but it's because of also how I studied at a very high level about, the fundamentals of statecraft, and the representation of state power in the African context.
Wow.
And I have another book that is coming up, and I'm very passionate about that. It's a book on the body, the human
Mm-hmm.
body, and its representations in literature, in the novels of a famous Colombian author, Gabriel Garcia
Mm-hmm.
Marquez, and a Congolese author, Sonny Labo Tangsi. So that is my upcoming book. That should be out hopefully around
Mm-hmm.
July, August. Yes, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a book that took me so many years to write, and it's also a book that is fundamental about. I mean, fundamental in my in South in Africa Latin American trajectory connection. Yeah, so
Wow.
watch out for that book.
Right. So I've just so far I've put I put his Facebook name running on a ticker. So if you find him from there, because
Yes,
it's easy, if you write to him, if you write to Gil through Facebook, he'll respond immediately. Just comment or write on Facebook Messenger, or you talk to me too as Comfort Convo on Facebook or TikTok, or that you want to uh, reach out to Gil, and of course I'll just make it happen because that's why he's here anyway. So Yes, thank you so much for being part of this inspiring and thought provoking session. So, if you found value in today's conversation, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with your network. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Here, we thank you so much for everything. Keep on doing what you are doing and keep on inspiring us. We look forward to the much that you've got in your, I don't know, repertoire or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I appreciate
Exactly.
you. Thank you so much.
Th- thank you very much, Komi. I also really, I mean, I took pleasure in this exchange, and I really hope that it's going to inspire one or two persons. And as you rightly say, I'm reachable, and please get in touch with me, and I can be able to, to support you in one way or the other. We actually grew by supporting each other.
Indeed. Thank you. Thanks so much. And